In 1999, in a village in the south of Senegal, a man got sick, and there was nothing anyone could do about it. Not because the illness was rare, not because nobody cared, because Bambali, 2,000 people, red dirt roads, mango trees, the Casamance River a short walk away, did not have a hospital. It did not have a clinic. It did not have a doctor. So the family did what families there did. They tried traditional medicine. It didn't work. Then they moved him toward the nearest place that might help. He died in another village. He was the imam of Bambali, and he left behind a 7-year-old son named Sadio Mané. That's the part of this story people already know. Here's the part they don't. 22 years later, that son stood in the exact same village and cut a ribbon on a building. A health center, emergency room, maternity ward, dental unit, consulting rooms. Reported cost, around 500,000 euros out of his own pocket. It now serves more than 30 surrounding villages. And then he gave it away. I want to be precise with you for the next 15 minutes because this story usually gets told badly. It gets told as a feel-good clip. Barefoot boy, big heart, look how nice. That version is useless. It skips the only question that matters. The question is the ledger. Where the money actually went, how much of it, and this is the part that changes everything. When? Because the timing is the story. Most footballers give after the trophy, after the legacy is safe, after somebody explains the tax benefit. Mané gave before. He put more than £200,000 into a secondary school in Bambali in April 2018. At that moment, he had never won the Champions League. He had never won the Premier League. He had never won the Africa Cup of Nations. He was a very good winger at a club that had not won a league title in 28 years. Call it the Bambali Ledger. Every line in it, in order, and what each line actually bought. We're going to walk it end to end. From a boy burying his father in a place with no hospital, to the day he handed over the keys to a building he had paid for and asked for nothing back. But to understand how he spends, you first have to understand what he did to get the money at all. That started with him running away. Bambali sits in Casamance, the strip of southern Senegal almost cut off from the rest of the country by Gambia. It is farmland, rice, peanuts, mangoes. Children worked the fields, and Sadio worked the fields. His father was a religious leader, and he did not want his son playing football. That is not a small detail. In a family like that, football was not a career. It was a distraction from school, from the mosque, from the work that fed everyone. So the boy played in secret, on bare feet, with a ball made of whatever the village had. Then his father died, and the household passed to his uncle, which changed one thing, and one thing only. Now there was one person he could argue with. He argued for years. He lost for years. So at 15, he stopped arguing and simply left. Slipped out of the village toward Dakar, 300 kilometers north, with no plan beyond the word trial. His family found him and brought him back. That is usually where these stories end. A boy is retrieved, the village exhales, he grows up, he farms. But the uncle did something that almost nobody in that position does. He let him go. Properly this time, with permission. Dakar took him in at Génération Foot, an academy on the edge of the city. The story that has followed him ever since is that he turned up to the trial in torn shorts and battered boots, and that the coaches looked at him and assumed nothing. Then he played, and the assumption changed inside about 10 minutes. The thing you have to understand about that academy is that it is a funnel with one exit, a formal partnership with a French club called Metz. Hundreds of boys arrive. A handful a year go through that door, and everybody there knows the ratio. That is the part of the story that gets flattened into talent. It was not talent alone. It was a 15-year-old making a bet against his own family, twice, with no fallback whatsoever. Because if the academy had cut him, There was no plan B waiting in Dakar. There was a bus back to the fields. In 2011, at 19, Mané walked through it, first professional contract. When he phoned home to say he had signed, his mother did not believe him. Metz was not glamour. Metz went down that season. But the following summer, Red Bull Salzburg paid for him. And in Austria, the thing that would define him at the highest level started to show. He did not just run fast. He ran fast for 90 minutes in a straight line at defenders over and over when everyone else was walking. Southampton bought him in 2014, and on the 16th of May 2015, against Aston Villa, he scored a hat-trick in 2 minutes and 56 seconds. That is still the fastest hat-trick in Premier League history. More than a decade later, nobody has come close. In 2016, Liverpool paid £34 million for him, at the time a record fee for an African player. He was 24. For the first time in his life, there was serious money, and a serious amount of it, arriving every single week. And here is where most footballers' stories become identical. Watches, cars, a house with a gate, a car collection posted online. It is not even a criticism. It is just what happens when a young man who had nothing suddenly has everything. Mané was asked about it directly in 2019 by a Ghanaian outlet. And his answer has been quoted so many times it has gone soft. So listen to it properly, as a man explaining a decision rather than delivering a line. Why would I want 10 Ferraris, 20 diamond watches, or 2 planes? What will these objects do for me and for the world? And then the part that never gets quoted, the part that actually explains him. I was hungry and I had to work in the field. I survived hard times, played football barefoot. I did not have an education. That is not humility. That is arithmetic. He knew exactly what a Ferrari costs, and he knew exactly what that same number buys in Casamance. So he started buying it. Line 1 of the Bambali Ledger, April 2018. A secondary school. Reported at more than £200,000. Before that school, a teenager in Bambali who wanted to continue past primary level had to leave. Leave the village, leave the family, find somewhere to sleep in a town with a school at 14, 15 years old. Which is a decision most families simply do not make. So the education stopped, and it stopped for exactly the same reason his father's treatment stopped. The building was somewhere else. Line 2. A monthly payment. Reported at around €70 a month to every family in the village. €70 is not a gesture. In Senegal, that figure sits at roughly the national minimum wage. He did not fund a project. He put a wage floor under 2,000 people and left it running. Line 3. Internet. He went to a provider and had 4G brought into a village that did not have it, which sounds like the smallest item on the list and is not. Because a school without internet in 2019 teaches you 1995. Then a mosque where his father had led prayers. A petrol station, so fuel did not have to be trucked in and marked up. A post office, which is how a village receives money from relatives working abroad, which in Senegal is a significant share of how households eat. Look at that list again and notice what it is not. It is not a foundation with a logo. It is not a charity single. It is not one signature building with his name on the front. It is a school, a clinic, a wage, a signal, a fuel pump, and a mailbox, which is, almost item for item, the checklist of a functioning small town. And he did not want it discussed. When a Telegraph journalist raised the school, Mané asked for it to be left out of the piece. His reason was 5 words long. I do not do this for publicity. Now, not everybody thinks this is a good story, and the objection is stronger than it first sounds. One side says this is the single best use of a footballer's money in the modern game, full stop. Direct, unmediated, no overheads, no administrators, the man knows the village personally. The other side says a country where one winger's salary has to substitute for a health service is a country with a policy failure, not a hero, and that celebrating it lets governments off the hook. Bambali got a hospital because a boy from Bambali happened to be spectacularly fast. The 34 other villages nearby got lucky by geography. Both of those can be true at the same time. Which one carries more weight is genuinely worth arguing about, and I would rather hear you argue it than tell you the answer. But hold that argument for a second, because there is something the ledger does not show you. On the 1st of June 2019, Mané won the Champions League, the biggest trophy in club football, in his hands at 27. 6 weeks later, he stood in Cairo in a Senegal shirt in the Africa Cup of Nations final, the match his entire country had waited its whole existence for, and lost it 1-0 to Algeria. And back home, 20 years after his father died on the road out of Bambali, the village still did not have a hospital. That is the strange shape of that summer. He had just won the most prestigious prize in European football, and neither of the two things he actually cared about had moved. Senegal had still never won anything. Bambali still had no doctor. The school was up, the money was going out, and the one building that would have saved his father was still not there. Closing that gap took the next 2.5 years. In June 2020, Liverpool won the Premier League. 30 years since the last one, and Mané had been the most consistent attacking player in the country across 3 seasons to get there. 3 months before that, in March 2020, with the world shutting down, he had wired money to Senegal's health ministry for the COVID response. Reported at around £40,000. No announcement, no campaign, no photograph of a check. And in the background, in Casamance, a building was going up. It opened in June 2021, a full health center in Bambali, emergency department, maternity ward, dental unit, consulting rooms. Reported at around €500,000 of his own money. According to the regional governor, it would serve more than 30 villages, which means the catchment of that one building is somewhere north of 10,000 people who, the week before it opened, had nowhere to go. Now, what I'm about to tell you is worth the like and the subscribe on its own, because it is the detail that separates this from every other charity story in football. He did not keep it. Mané met Senegal's president and formally handed the hospital over to the state, gifted it, which means it is not his. He cannot brand it, he cannot close it, he cannot use it as leverage, and no future version of Sadio Mané, richer, angrier, worse advised, can take it back. He paid for a public building and then made it genuinely public. That is not generosity. That is a man who understood that a gift you still control is not really a gift. Think about what that building is, standing in that specific village. There is a maternity ward in Bambali now. Sadio Mané was born in that village without one. So was his sister. Both delivered at home because home was the only option. There is an emergency department in Bambali now, a short walk from the house where a 7-year-old was told his father was gone. He did not build a monument to his father. He built the thing that was missing on the day his father needed it, and then removed his own name from the ownership of it. And then, 8 months later, the other gap closed. You have to understand what the Africa Cup of Nations means to Senegal to understand this next part. Senegal is a serious football country. It produced Papa Bouba Diop, El Hadji Diouf, the team that knocked out the reigning world champions in 2002. And in more than 60 years of trying, it had won the continental title exactly 0 times. 2 finals reached, 2 finals lost. It was the defining wound of Senegalese sport, and Mané had personally been on the pitch for the most recent one. On the 6th of February 2022, they reached a third, Egypt in Cameroon. Mané missed a penalty inside the first 10 minutes, the kind of miss that follows a man for the rest of his life if the night goes wrong. The night went to a shootout, and the last penalty, the one to win Senegal's first ever Africa Cup of Nations, was given to the man who had already missed one. He scored it. A country that had never won anything won it, and the man who put it away was a boy from a village of 2,000 people who used to play barefoot because his father did not want him playing at all. That same year, he finished second in the Ballon d'Or, second best footballer on earth. But that is not the number that matters, and I don't think he'd tell you it was. In 1999, there was a village with no hospital, and a man in it died. In 2021, there was a hospital in that village, and it does not belong to the family who paid for it. It belongs to everyone else.